Somewhere in the dry hills beyond the last gas station in Arizona, a man named Ethan is asleep under a crooked cottonwood tree. He is not depressed. He is not taking a mental health day. He is not avoiding emails because no one has invented the particular curse of emails yet. He is simply done. His work for the day is finished, and the sun is still high enough to accuse the rest of us of living incorrectly. That is where the trouble begins. Because once you learn how little time ancient humans may have spent working, the information does not politely leave your mind. It stays there. It follows you into elevators. It watches you open your laptop. It sits in the passenger seat during your commute, whispering. Your ancestor gathered breakfast, repaired a tool, told 3 jokes, took a nap, and still had time to emotionally process a cloud. Most of human history did not look like our history. For hundreds of thousands of years, people lived in small camps. They hunted, they gathered, they cooked, they argued, they laughed, they loved badly, loved well, buried their dead, raised their children, and occasionally made a mess of everything, as humans traditionally do. But the work that kept them alive often took only a few hours a day. A few, not 8, not 10. Not just one more quick thing before bed. A few. Most of us complete that amount of work before lunch and then continue because somewhere along the way civilization looked at sunlight, family, sleep, and silence and said, interesting. But what if spreadsheets? The people in Ethan's camp have no clock, no rent, no supervisor named Brad who says things like, let's circle back. They are not waiting for Friday, because Friday has not yet been given divine status by exhausted office workers. Their days are not empty, but they are not owned in the way ours are owned. That is the truth that traps me. Not that their lives were easy. They were not. The past had teeth, infections, hunger, grief, and absolutely no customer support. But it also had something we keep pretending is a luxury: time. So what did ancient people do all day? A researcher named Dr. Nathan Reed once followed a desert foraging community and recorded the hours carefully. Not myths, not nostalgia. Minutes, tasks, movement, rest. The work came to roughly 15 hours a week. 15 hours. That number lands like a stone in the stomach. Your ancestors did not have a boss. They did not clock in. They did not work late to prove commitment to a company that would replace them by Tuesday. They did not need a weekend because no one had designed a week cruel enough to require one. Their day began with light. You wake because the sky is turning pale, because someone nearby coughs, because a child rolls over, because the fire has thinned to a red glow and the morning air is cold against your face. You do not check your phone. There is no phone. Already a miracle. You sleep on hides laid across flattened grass. Everything you own can be carried in one bundle. A digging stick, a bow, a knife made from stone or bone, a few skins, maybe a necklace from a daughter, maybe some beads from a sister, maybe a tool so old and repaired it has become less object than family member. Around you are 25 or 30 people. You know every one of them. Not the modern way where you know someone's job title, coffee order, and nothing about what keeps them awake. You know who limps when the weather changes, who lies badly, who laughs before the joke is finished, who eats too fast, who is grieving but pretending not to, who should not be trusted with secrets or berries. Your grandmother sleeps a few steps from your children. No one is late, because late requires a clock, and the clock has not yet entered the story like a small round villain. The first hour is talking. This may sound lazy if you have been raised in a world where silence at a desk looks productive and meaningful conversation is scheduled for after everyone is exhausted. But in the camp, talking is not a break from life. Talking is the machine that keeps life from falling apart. Who shared yesterday? Who held back? Who has been flirting too obviously? Who insulted whom? Who told the funniest story? Who looks sick? Who has become dangerous? Who needs help but will never ask because humans have always been complicated little disasters? This is not gossip in the empty sense. It is law. It is therapy. It is news. It is insurance. It is the entire human resources department, except instead of forms, there is an old woman with perfect memory and no mercy. If a man keeps too much meat, people joke about him until his ego shrinks to a safer size. If a woman breaks a promise, the story travels from one fire to the next. If someone becomes impossible, the camps remember. The harshest punishment is not prison. It is being unwanted everywhere. That sounds simple until you imagine it clearly. No camp willing to take you in. No fire where your name is welcome. No familiar hands reaching for your child. Exile in a small world is almost a death sentence. And because everyone knows that, it rarely has to happen. Dr. Reed once learned this through embarrassment, which is one of humanity's oldest teaching methods. After living with the group for months, he wanted to thank them. So he bought the largest, fattest steer he could find from a ranch outside town and brought it to camp. He imagined gratitude, possibly admiration, maybe, in his weaker moments, a little applause. They told him the animal was pathetic. Too skinny. Too old. The meat would be tough. The whole thing was a disaster. Someone probably said the steer looked like it had died of sadness before arriving. Dr. Reed was confused. He had checked the animal carefully. It was enormous. Finally, he asked an elder named Walter what was happening. Walter explained that when a hunter brings home a great kill, the camp does not praise him. They mock the kill. They say the animal is small, the meat is bad, the hunter is nothing special. The bigger the kill, the sharper the jokes. Because a successful hunter is useful. A successful hunter who believes he is above everyone else is a social disease with legs. So they cut him down before he can rise too high. They had done the same thing to Dr. Reed. His gift was generous, which made it dangerous. Pride had to be removed before serving. In that camp, no one was allowed to float above the group. Every joke was a knife. Every complaint was a rope. Every whispered story pulled people back to the ground. We built courts, prisons, departments, contracts, policies, alarms, locks, passwords, and meetings about previous meetings. They looked at arrogance and said, "Let's roast him until he becomes normal again." By mid-morning, the hunters begin to gather. This is the part our imagination likes best. Men walking into golden grass, bows in hand, eyes lowered to the tracks. Silence, dust, danger. The camera would definitely use slow motion here, because apparently masculinity requires backlighting. Hunting was dramatic. It was also unreliable. A hunter could walk 20 miles, track an animal for hours, wound it, lose it, and return with nothing but aching legs and a story everyone would improve at his expense. Most days, hunters came back empty-handed. That does not mean hunting was unimportant. When it worked, it mattered enormously. A single large animal could feed many people. The kill became memory. The story could last for years. But the hunter lived with uncertainty. The ground lied. The wind shifted. Animals vanished. Arrows missed. Bodies got tired. Nature, as always, refused to respect human confidence. When a hunter succeeded, he might follow the wounded animal for hours. He read the bent grass, the drop of blood, the broken branch, the silence of birds. The bow was not just a weapon. It was knowledge shaped into wood. They brought down deer, antelope, elk, animals large enough to make the whole camp smell like smoke and blood and celebration. And still, the hunters were not usually the ones who kept everyone fed. The women were. That truth enters quietly, then rearranges the room. While the men chased uncertain meat, women went out in small groups with digging sticks and woven bags. They gathered roots, seeds, fruit, nuts, greens, tubers, anything the land offered without demanding a heroic soundtrack. Their work was steady, not glamorous, steady, which in survival is better than glamorous. Glamorous is what gets you a statue. Steady is what gets children through winter. The hunters made the stories bigger. The gatherers made hunger smaller. On the walk back, the women talked. Decisions formed there. Who needed help? Which family had tension? Which child was sick? Which young couple had begun looking at each other in a way that was fooling absolutely no one? The men might bring the feast. The women brought the day. And often, the best gatherers were grandmothers. Women in their 50s, 60s, and older could bring back more food than younger mothers. They knew where the roots hid after dry weather. They knew which tree ripened early. They knew which patch had been overused and which could still give. A grandmother with a digging stick may not look like the engine of human evolution. That is because we are easily distracted by spears. But scientists have argued that grandmothers helped make us human. Human women live long after childbearing years, and one reason may be that grandmothers kept grandchildren alive. They fed them, watched them, taught them, remembered everything. Civilization has never fully recovered from underestimating older women. This was also how children learned. A little girl named Lily follows her mother with a tiny digging stick. She is 3. She jabs at the soil, mostly causing trouble, which is the natural occupation of 3-year-olds in every century. No one gives her a worksheet. No one says, "Today's learning objective is tuber identification." She watches. She copies. She plays at survival until one day it is not play. By 6, she can find food. By 10, she contributes enough that people notice. A boy named Caleb, 8 years old, might go out with a small bow and return with a bird. He is proud. He tries not to look proud. Pride, as established, attracts jokes like blood attracts flies. Children spent much of their time in mixed age groups. Older children taught younger ones. Adults did not hover over every mistake. A child who fell was usually picked up by another child. A question might be answered by a sibling, cousin, or friend. This was school before school became a building. Watching, copying, playing, failing, trying again. No bell, no desk, no fluorescent lights humming like trapped insects. The world itself was the classroom, which is charming until you remember the final exam could be hunger. By midday, food returns to camp, and it is shared. Immediately, sharing was not a personality trait. It was not something people did because they had read an inspiring quote carved into driftwood. Sharing was survival. If Ethan killed a large animal, he did not own the meat. The meat belonged to the camp. He distributed it. Often, he received one of the worst cuts. This sounds unfair until you understand the deeper bargain. Today, your arrow flies true. Tomorrow, someone else finds roots when your children are hungry. The next week, another family feeds you when your luck goes bad. No one survives long on personal achievement alone. That is a modern fantasy usually told by people standing on infrastructure they did not build. In the camp, memory kept score. Who shared? Who held back? Who helped during illness? Who disappeared when work got hard? Who always arrived at meals with suspiciously empty hands and excellent timing? Generosity was a savings account. Reputation was the currency. The ledger lived in everyone's head, which is terrifying, because people remember the exact wrong things forever. Afternoon arrives. The heat thickens. And here is another truth that feels almost illegal now. They stop. They do not push through the worst heat to prove discipline. They do not announce that sleep is for the weak. They do not attend a motivational seminar called Conquer the Sun. They rest. People nap in shade. Repair arrows. Weave grass into baskets. Scrape hides. Crack nuts. Tell stories. Pick lice from one another's hair. That last part sounds unpleasant, but it was also intimate. Grooming was closeness. It was touch. It was an hour beside someone you trusted. Modern people pay professionals for this now and call it a spa day. Ancient people called it Tuesday. The middle of the day belonged to the body. If you needed to relieve yourself, you walked into the brush. No plumbing. No porcelain. No toilet paper. Leaves, sand, water, habit. Not glamorous. But neither is sitting under office lighting with a stomachache while pretending to understand a quarterly report. If a woman was bleeding, she used soft grass, moss, or whatever the environment allowed. Some groups isolated menstruating women. Others did not. In many places, she simply continued her day. Bodies were inconvenient, messy, powerful, ordinary. Not every natural thing was sacred. Not every natural thing was shameful. Sometimes a body was just a body, doing its strange little body tasks like an unreliable but beloved animal. Sex existed too, of course. Humans did not spend hundreds of thousands of years politely avoiding the topic. There was desire, privacy when possible, jealousy, tenderness, affairs, mistakes, consequences. They were not saints. They were people. Which means someone somewhere was always being dramatic near a fire. Conflict happened. Tools were stolen. Promises broke. Lovers betrayed one another. Old grudges woke up hungry. A joke went too far. Someone ate something they should have shared. But conflict had an escape route. If life became unbearable, someone could leave. Everything they owned could be packed quickly. A person could walk to another camp, stay with relatives, let anger cool, let the story change shape. This changes what rage can become. In our world, we call that avoidance. But many of us are trapped inside jobs, leases, mortgages, bills, school zones, insurance plans, and social expectations so tangled they might as well be vines. Ancient people could vote with their feet. We vote with our calendars, and the calendar usually wins. Late afternoon, the camp begins moving again. People visit neighboring camps. A few miles to see relatives. Trade news. Arrange marriages. Retell scandals. Exchange tools. Laugh at the same old story because it is never really about the story. It is about being there together when it is told. The same camps stay connected year after year, generation after generation. By adulthood, you may know more than 100 people personally. Personally, their wounds, their parents, their children, their lies, their talents, their dead. 100 people may not sound like many now, when strangers can observe your breakfast online. But there is a difference between being seen and being known. The hunters return. Some days with meat, most days without. The men bring dust, sore feet, and explanations. The women bring bags full of food and the calm expression of people who have quietly prevented disaster again. History has often preferred the man with the bow. Survival kept looking at the woman with the digging stick. Evening comes. The fire grows important. Roots roast in coals. Meat cooks in skin pouches with hot stones. Fruit is split open. Seeds are softened for children. Smoke settles into hair and hide and memory. People gather because darkness is older than houses. Then comes the meal. Everyone eats. Not alone in a parked car. Not standing over a sink. Not in front of a screen while a video plays beside another video because silence has become suspicious. The whole camp eats together because the whole camp survived together. They had done some version of this for hundreds of thousands of years. And now we must be honest because the past is dangerous when polished too much. This was not paradise. Children died. Mothers grieved. People got infections. Teeth broke. Hunger came. Accidents happened. Violence happened. Love did not save everyone. A bad wound could end a life. A fever could take a child. A birth could become a funeral. There was no golden age where humans were pure, peaceful, and emotionally regulated. They were us without dental care. But there is a type of suffering they seem to have known less intimately than we do. The modern ache. The slow despair of doing work you do not believe in to afford a life you barely have time to live. The exhaustion of being reachable by everyone and truly held by almost no one. The feeling of lying awake while your body begs for sleep and your mind opens a committee meeting. The comparison to strangers whose lives look brighter because they photograph them near better windows. The loneliness of eating alone in a city full of people. The strange humiliation of needing rest and feeling guilty for taking it. A scholar once called early humans the original affluent society. Not because they were rich. They owned almost nothing. But they had time. And once that idea enters you, it does not leave cleanly. It stains. We made real gains. We should not pretend otherwise. We gained antibiotics, vaccines, surgery, clean water, refrigeration, electricity, indoor plumbing, glasses, anesthesia, and the ability to survive things that once killed without explanation. Fewer children die now. More people live long enough to become old. Pain can be treated. Infection can be stopped. A broken bone is no longer automatically a negotiation with death. These are victories. Real ones. No one honest should say we simply need to go back. The past was not waiting with open arms. It was waiting with parasites. But we also made trades we rarely name. We invented agriculture and called it security. We invented property and called it order. We invented work owned by someone else and called it opportunity. We invented bosses, bills, debt, deadlines, alarms, commutes, applications, passwords, performance reviews, and chairs designed by people who apparently hate spines. Then we placed ancient bodies inside this new machinery and acted surprised when they began to ache. Your body is old. Older than cities. Older than money. Older than clocks. It expects morning light, night darkness, movement with purpose, food shared with familiar faces, children within reach, elders with roles, touch without transaction, stories repeated around warmth, and long stretches of time where nothing is urgently trying to extract value from you. Your nervous system was not built for endless alerts. It was built to notice a rustle in the grass, not 27 notifications from apps you barely remember downloading. And somewhere beneath the noise, the old self waits. It waits in the body that relaxes near a fire, in the mind that heals during a long walk, in the sudden peace of talking with someone who knows your history, in the strange grief you feel on a beautiful afternoon when you are indoors answering messages that do not matter. That is the trap. The evidence does not say ancient life was easy. It says our life is not inevitable. That is worse. A difficult life can be endured. An unnecessary one has to be questioned. Somewhere in the Arizona shade, Ethan wakes from his nap. The day is not over, but his work is. He sits up slowly. Someone nearby laughs. A child runs past with a stick. Smoke rises from the fire. The sun lowers, indifferent and enormous. And across thousands of years, the truth looks back at us. Not accusing. Not forgiving, just waiting for us to admit what we traded away.